This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this week, this hour, is a good friend of the X-Zone. We had him on last week. Dr. Patrick Heron is our guest. We're going to be talking about Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. And Patrick, always great having you back with us here in the X-Zone. You know, this is such an important topic. It takes a lot of time to get the message out there that we just had to have you back on. And I was wondering, Patrick, if you could just give us a recap of what you and I discussed last week.
Yeah, well, we got into, Rob, and thank you again for having me back on. We got into my recent book, which is called Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. And it's a sort of a follow-up, a part two. Many of your listeners may have read my last book, which was quite successful and continues to sell well, called The Nephilim and the Pyramid of the Apocalypse, which was a thesis on the fallen angels of Genesis 6 and my belief that these were the guys who built a lot of the ancient monuments, these enigmas that scattered the ancient world, such as the pyramids of Giza, the Stonehenge in England, Newgrange in Ireland, the Great Pyramids in Mexico, the pyramids of Guatemala, the Nazca Lines in Peru, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the giant heads, and such things like that. Not to mention the Mayan calendar and all those other buildings by the Mayans and the Mayan calendar, which ends supposedly on the 21st of December in 2012. But my new book takes this to the topic of the fallen angels to the next level, and it's extremely radical. Last week I discussed with you that when the Messiah spoke about the signs of the end of the world and his second coming, he gave a whole list of things to watch out for, of course, which are very topical at the moment, Rob.
Sure.
You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And that's ethnos in the Greek, vos ethnos, one tribe against another tribe, which is exactly what's happening in Libya and all these other places, various Arab tribes. He said there'll be an increase in famines, in earthquakes, in diseases, in peculiar weather, and lawlessness, immorality, and all those other things. And of course, the main sign to do with the end times is the fact that the Jews are back in Palestine and Israel again after their almost 2,000-year worldwide scattering. That's the main sign that we're in the end times that very hard to contend with, because every time you switch on the news and you see trouble between the Jews and the Arabs, that is that sign coming to pass. But one of the things the Messiah said in Matthew 24, he said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be. So last week we discussed about the return of these fallen angels to earth once more in the full sight of men. And I have to go back to Genesis 6, and we discussed how the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. According to the book of Enoch, 200 of these gods if you will, with a small g,
Right.
descended on Mount Hermon in the days of Jared, about 1,000 years prior to the flood of Noah. They were beautiful looking, supernatural, superhuman beings, irresistible to the women, full of knowledge and wisdom and fascination. They took women to wife, and these women had offspring for them, which were the giants of the Old Testament. And by the end of 1,000 years or so, which precipitated the flood of Noah, these gods had infected the DNA of almost the whole population of the world at that time, except for Noah and his family, just 8 souls. So that could have been 20 or 30 million people. And we're told in Genesis 6 that the whole earth was filled with violence and bloodshed, and there was only an evil in man's heart continually because of the influence of these 200 fallen angels.
Patrick, please stand by, my good friend. You and I have to take a commercial break. Exonation Dr. Patrick Heron is our special guest all the way from Dublin, Ireland. And the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. For more information on Dr. Heron, his website is www.neph.ie. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
And welcome back, everyone. Dr. Patrick Heron is my very special guest, a good friend of the X Zone Nation. His new book, Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. His website is www.neph.ie. Patrick, we hear about the book of Revelations, and we hear of the The four horsemen. Now, what exactly are the four horsemen? Are they symbols? Do they symbolize earth, wind, fire, and wind? Or are these actual entities that are going to be facing the world as a prelude to the end?
Yes, your second submission there is the correct one. They are metaphors, but it's like parables in the Bible. Mm-hmm. All parables have a literal meaning, and in the same way, these four horsemen of the apocalypse have a literal meaning. That when I spoke to you a moment ago about the signs of the end, when the Messiah gave the signs, the first thing he said is, "Don't let anybody deceive you, for many deceivers will go out in my name, saying, I am Christ." Then he said you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. Then he talked about an increase in famines and earthquakes and diseases and natural disasters and the like. Right, the Antichrist, when he comes, this man, and by the way, those fallen angels I was talking about that were on the earth prior to the flood, we're told that they're locked up in this subterranean prison, which is called in the Bible the abyss or the bottomless pit, and once in the epistle of Peter is called Tartarus or Tartarus. And this, of course, ties Tartarus in with the gods of Greek and Roman and Egyptian mythology, where we're told that the gods are imprisoned because they rebelled against Zeus. Again, Greek and Roman mythology fits in with the biblical records, which talks about gods coming down from heaven and taking mortal women to wife, and they produce offspring for them. So the first horse that goes out is the white horse. Now, this is the Antichrist, but he's a counterfeit Christ. Anti means in the stead of. It doesn't necessarily mean against. It can mean in the stead of Christ. So when this guy comes, when he arrives on the earth, this man, who's at the moment locked up in a subterranean prison, mm-hmm. the bottomless pit, they're going to be released according to Revelation chapter 9. And these 200 are going to be released onto the earth again. And that's why this fellow is called, he's never called the Antichrist in the book of Revelation. 33 times he's referred to as the beast from the abyss. In fact, his full name is the beast who ascends out of the abyss, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this guy goes on to become what we call the Antichrist. So Antichrist means in the stead of Christ. And the reason he goes out on a white horse, which is the first of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, is because he's a counterfeit Christ. In Revelation 19, we're told that when the Messiah, the true Messiah, comes back at Armageddon, mm-hmm. it says he's coming back riding a white horse. And the armies of heaven are going to be on his shoulder. Those who are called and faithful and chosen, which are the church of God, are coming with him, also on white horses. Okay? So the reason that the Anti goes out on a white horse is because he's a counterfeit Christ. When he shows up, when the apocalypse begins, I believe he's going to say, I am Jesus Christ. He may even have holes in his hands. He may change water into wine. And we're told that almost everybody in the world would be astonished when they see the beast from the abyss, because he is able to deceive them with signs, miracles, and wonders, just as the true Messiah did signs, miracles, and wonders when he was on earth. Now, the second horse that comes along is the red horse. The red horse, again, is a metaphor. And we're told in Revelation that this red horse is given a sword whereby he can take away peace from the earth and cause men to kill one another. Now, in Greek and Roman mythology, the god of war was the god Mars, and Mars is a red planet. Yes. And by the way, a lot of these angels, these fallen gods, have astronomical names. They're referred to many times as the stars of heaven. Mm-hmm. And in my book on the Nephilim, I show the association, a lot of them. So Apollo is a planet, Mars is a planet, and Mars was the god of war. He is the red planet because Mars is a red planet, and he goes out on a red horse to take peace away from the world and to cause men to kill one another. Then we have the black horse, and the black horse comes along, and the rider on the black horse has the scales in his hand, Rob, and he says 3 quarts of barley for the day's work and a handful of wheat for the day's work, and do not hurt the oil or the wine. Now, black in biblical terms always denotes scarcity and famine, and bread by measure always denotes scarcity and famine. So this rider on the black horse is portending, I believe, worldwide famine and economic collapse. And Mercury in Greek and Roman mythology is the god of commerce. We get the word, comes from the Latin Mercurius. We get the word merchant from Mercurius. So I believe that this particular God might very possibly be in this coming New World Order government under the power of the Antichrist, together with human beings, could very well be the Minister for Commerce. What do we call them today? The Minister for Business, Finance.
I see. We call them thieves.
Yeah, I know. So you might have the Antichrist is the main leader. Then we have the Minister of Defense,
right?
Mars. Then we have the Minister for Finance, Mercury, and he's on a black horse. And only 2 years ago, Rob, there were food riots in 22 different countries in the world. And what we're seeing today at the moment with the whole economic collapse, especially in this country, I mean, Ireland is on the brink of the abyss financially. And so this followed closely by Portugal. Then you have Spain after that. After that, you've got Italy. And if those go, then the whole of the euro could possibly collapse. And this is, of course, being precipitated by everything that happened in Wall Street with the banks down there and the very cute lads down in Wall Street in New York. So the black horse, as I say, is Mercury, I believe. Then we have a pale horse, and we're told that the rider on the pale horse is named Death. And of course, in the book of Revelation and in the Old Testament, we have the angel of death. The angel of the death was the one that passed over Egypt when Moses was trying to get Pharaoh to let all the Israelites get out of Egypt. And the angel of death passed over Egypt. The eldest son in every family died. The eldest of our cows and horses and sheep, etc., died. So there is an angel called the angel of death, and he's on the pale horse. And thus we have the expression as pale as death. So they're the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And these are real beings. We didn't really get into it in depth last week. But as I said earlier and last week too, that when the beast comes up out of the abyss, it says he's got 7 heads and 10 horns, right?
Yes, you did.
These are metaphors. I don't know if we got into it in depth last week. The 10 horns relate, we did briefly, to the 10 hoes. Or, excuse me, the 10 toes. That was a Freudian slip there. These are referred to the 10 toes of the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had in the book of Daniel chapter 2.
Right.
And he spoke about for the different kingdoms, the kingdom of gold, silver, brass, and iron. And of course, the gold was the Babylonian Empire, which was Nebuchadnezzar's empire. That was followed by the Medo-Persian Empire. Then after that came the brass, which was the Grecian empire of Alexander the Great, which in turn was superseded by the Roman Empire, which were the legs of iron. And then it spoke about another empire that was going to come in the far distant future that would dominate the world. And it said it was made up of 10 toes. And these 10 toes were going to be made up of clay and iron. And then it says a very peculiar thing in Daniel 2:24, or 2:43 rather. It says, they shall mingle their seed with the seed of men. This is referring to the 10 horns of the beast who rises out of the abyss. These are 10 leaders who are going to rule the world, because the world is going to be split up into 10 regions, and they're going to rule together with human politicians. That's why it says the 10 toes are made up of clay and iron, because we are the clay. Human beings are the clay. Dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And we are together with the iron, compared to these supernatural, superhuman, magical, mystical, spiritual beings, which are the fallen angels. We are like clay and iron compared to them. So they are going to be the 10 horns which rule over the world under the power of the Antichrist. But it says that they will not cleave one to another, even as clay does not cleave to iron. So there will be discord at some future point in this new world order, one world government, which is coming on the earth.
Sounds like these are very interesting times ahead of us that we're coming up to, Patrick. But a question that I have for you, Patrick, and this was a question that was echoed by a number of the listeners who heard you last week. They sent me a number of emails. How do we know the information that is in the Bible is really as we foresee it, and that it is not, the book of Revelation is not just trying to tell us how to live a better life, and it's on a personal basis instead of on a global basis?
By the time that the apocalypse happens and all the prophecies in the book of Revelation come to pass, it's going to be too late for all that, Rob.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Again, later on, perhaps if we have time, I'll get into a short the discussion about the parable of the wise virgins who had their lamps trimmed with oil and were ready to go out to meet their bridegroom, and the 5 unwise virgins who didn't have any oil in their lamps and were not ready to go out to meet him. Because this is going to distinguish the Christians before what, in America they call the rapture of the church, and those multitudes of people that are going to turn to God and Jesus during the Great Tribulation. But it's going to be too late for them. In the parable, it says that at midnight the call came to come up and go out to meet your bridegroom. The bridegroom has come for you. And of course, the wise virgins got up, they trimmed their lamps, they went out to meet the bridegroom. Then the ones that didn't have any oil in their lamps, they said, give us some oil so we can go out too. And they said, no, you've got to go and buy oil for yourself. So they went off to buy oil. But when they came back, it was too late. The 5 wise virgins who had the oil in their lamps had gone into the marriage feast with the bridegroom, and the door was shut. And again, the oil is a metaphor referring to the Holy Spirit. Those people who, people call born again Bible thumpers, people like me, nutcases like me.
You're not a nutcase, my friend. You're a man on a mission who has an important message, and this is why we love you, Pat, because you call it as it is. And you know what? It's always great having you on the show, my friend, but you and I have to take a commercial break with the news. Please stand by. X-Zone Nation, Dr. Patrick Heron, a great pleasure to always have here on the X-Zone. He's the author of Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order, www.neph.ie. We'll be back on the other side of this break with the news as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
X-Zone Nation, Dr. Patrick Heron is our special guest. He's the author of Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. His website is www.neph.ie. Patrick, what is this, the story that we're hearing about pertaining to a great city?
Yes, in Revelations chapter 17 and 18, it speaks about a great city that it is to come, which is going to be very like the headquarters of the Antichrist and his 10 lieutenants and the human politicians. I'll tell you what I'll do, Rob. I'm going to go through the clues that are hidden in Revelation chapter 17 and 18. They're a bit like those cartoons we used to get in comic books when we were kids, when they would show you, for instance, say a farmyard,
yes,
a barn and a tractor and stuff, and then they tell you there's 10 chickens hidden in this picture. You have to find them. So you'd see one in the chimney of the barn, you'd see another one in the wheel of the tractor, and another one in the haycock, etc. It's a bit like that with the clues that are hidden in Revelation chapter 17 and 18. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through the clues and give them to you now.
Okay.
And so you give me a few minutes to do this, and at the end of these clues, I will ask you and pose the question to you as to who do you think or what do you think this city is.
Okay,
is that
sure.
fair enough?
That's fair enough.
Okay. So this is Revelation 17, and this is what the angel John is writing. It said, so he carried me away, and he's talking about the angel that was with John. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-coloured beast full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and abominations of the earth. And she had a golden cup in her hand. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great astonishment. And then it goes on, the angel says, why are you astonished? I'm now going to explain to you what this vision is. And these are all metaphors, okay?
Sure.
So, down in the next verse, we actually have 3 clues in here. And it says, he saith, the angel saith to me, to John, he said, the waters which you saw where the whore sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. That's clue number 1. And the woman which you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Okay, so the first thing it says, the woman which you saw is a great city. Now, 5 times in Revelation chapter 18, we're told that this is a great city. The woman is a great city. It's not a kingdom, it's not a nation, it's a great city. And it says the waters which you saw where the whore or the woman sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Therefore, what it's saying is that the people that inhabit this great city are multicultural in the population, okay? They're multitudes, nations, tongues, different people. And then it says, and the woman you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. These 10 horns we were talking about, the Antichrist and his rulers, together with human politicians. It says that this city is going to reign over these kings. Now, if you turn that the other way around, it means that these kings or rulers, the Antichrist and his lieutenants and the human politicians, are going to reign or rule from this great city. Now, a lot of people say, oh, hold on, this is talking about Babylon. It's talking about the original Babylon out in the middle of Iraq. You know, it's going to be restored to its former glory of thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. But this is actually rubbish, because in Revelation 11, we're told it talks about Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Well, we all know that the Messiah was not crucified in Sodom or Egypt. These are metaphors referring to Jerusalem, which will also become a very evil place in this future time. So by the same way, this mystery Babylon is not referring to the old Babylon. Babylon at the moment is a broken down old city in the middle of the desert, and it doesn't figure anywhere on the Richter scale of great cities. So we're talking about a great, powerful city at the moment. Okay, a modern city which is great in power and influence in these, the last days. And then it goes on in Revelation 18 to talk about the demise of this city. And at the end of the book of Revelation, we're told it's going to be burned with fire. Here's another clue. And the 10 horns, these are the rulers, which you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the prostitute, the city, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning. And then it talks about all the kings of the earth standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And it says, the merchants, which were made rich by her, that's another clue, shall stand afar off for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And it goes on, the merchants of the earth, here's another clue coming, another hint, the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. And then it gives a list of the stuff that you can buy in this great city. It says merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, thymine wood, all manner of vessels of ivory, vessels of most precious wood, of brass, iron, marble. And then the merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster, there's another clue, and all the company of ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, another clue, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. So this is a very rich city. You might say that this city is the center of world trade. Right. Then we have in Jeremiah chapter 49 and 50, we've got more prophecies about the same Babylon. Now we know that these are referring to the same time of the apocalypse and to the same city, because it says no less than 8 times in these 2 chapters, it says, it is the time of the Lord's vengeance and the day of vengeance and the time of Jacob's trouble. These are all metaphors referring to the apocalypse in the Bible. So here's another clue coming up. And it says, this is the word of the Lord spoke through Jeremiah the prophet concerning Babylon, the city, and the land of the Babylonians. So this is not just talking about the city, but also it's now extended into the whole country. And it says, here's a great clue. Even if Babylon reaches the sky and fortifies her lofty strongholds, I will send destroyers against her, says the Lord. She surrenders, her towers fall, her walls are torn down, since this is the vengeance of the Lord. And it says, before your eyes I will repay Babylon, the city, and all who live in Babylonia. So I'm going to summarize those clues for you.
All right.
Number one clue. The implication is that this great city is a sea trading city with a harbour, because shipmasters and merchants made a lot of money there. 2, everything is for sale that anyone could ever want to buy in this city. Number 3, it is the financial centre for world trade and commerce. Number 4, businessmen have made vast fortunes by trading with this city. 5, this city has a multicultural population drawn from all corners of the globe. 6, this city has high towers and lofty strongholds that reach to the sky. 7, the headquarters of the government of the Antichrist will rule from its headquarters in this wealthy city. 8, this city is described as the mother of prostitutes and has a cup in her hand and sits by many waters. So, I would throw that out to you and your listeners and ask you to give me your idea as to you think which city this might be prophesying of.
New York City.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As I said to you earlier, the financial heart and center of all the markets in the whole world is New York City.
Let me ask you this question, Pat. Is that why the trade towers were targeted by Islam?
I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. But I'll tell you that in this future apocalypse, at the end of it, there's going to be a nuclear strike. I show this in my book because at the end of the book of the Great Tribulation, at the Apocalypse, it talks about a huge army from the east, numbering 200 million, kill about a third of the population of the world in their march westward to this place in northern Israel, which is called the Valley of Megiddo. And it says that they are met there by the Antichrist under the power of a huge military force from the west. And then there's a sort of a Mexican standoff there, and somebody pushes the button. And John wrote in the book of Revelation that he saw flashes of lightning, he heard peals of thunder, rumblings, and what he described as a huge earthquake. And he said all the cities of the nations fell down. Now, John can only describe what he saw in terms of his own vocabulary.
Right.
He was in his 80s when he wrote this almost 2,000 years ago. So he saw flashes of lightning, similar to the flashes of lightning we saw when we see, the shooting up Iraq and Baghdad like we did, or Libya at the moment. He heard rumblings, like the rumblings of explosion as you hear in the distance as the bombs hit. Then he heard loud noises like lightning banging. Well, that's exactly what it's like if you're standing up close to these missiles shooting off. But the key and the clue which tells us that this is a nuclear strike, it says all the cities of the nations fell down. And Rob, there's only one thing that makes all the cities of the nations fall down, and that's a nuclear strike. And the interesting thing is that there's another prophecy about Babylon, which I wasn't going to include because I thought it too far-fetched, which it says, the sea will rise over Babylon, its roaring waves will cover her. And I was thinking, now, how could that be? How could the sea rise over New York City? But then I was getting out of my car one night about 2 o'clock in the morning after having a couple of beers around the corner, and it struck me that if you have 30 or 40,000 nuclear warheads all going off all over the world at roughly the same time, you're talking about mega tsunami.
Yeah.
Right? And always remember too, when we listen to the politicians, present politicians like the Prime Minister of Britain a year ago, Brown, spoke. He mentioned the New World Order 9 times in a 20-minute speech. George Bush, of course, famously senior, spoke about the New World Order. And when these guys talk about their grand plans for this New World Order, they always say that the United Nations is the vehicle whereby they're going to attain this, utopia of a one world government. And who is it that's attacking Libya at the moment? The United Nations. And where are the headquarters of the United Nations?
New York City.
That's right. And they often, you'll have the G7, you'll have the G10, the G20. Very often they have meetings in other places, but the main ones, and the most of them, always come back to New York City. We have the United Nations there. We have the General Council's meeting there. We have the financial center of Wall Street there, and all the banks. We have the skyscrapers there, and that's why it says their towers reach to the sky. That's exactly where it has to be. And many prophecy writers and authors and teachers say that the United States is not mentioned in prophecy. Well, I'm telling you that it's all over Revelation chapter 17 and 18 and Jeremiah 49 and 50. And when it says not only Babylon is going to get this reward, but also the land of the Babylonians. So all the major cities in the United States are going to be nuked by the end of the book of Revelation, when this whole thing falls apart and all the guacamole hits the fan. And the interesting thing is that they meet in this place called the Valley of Megiddo, Rob. The Valley of Megiddo is in northern Israel. It's about 15 miles long and a few 10 miles wide. And in ancient days, anybody traveling from Europe and the West wanting to travel to China and the Far East had to go through this valley because of the mountains running north and south. And anybody coming from India or China or the Far East wanting to go to Europe would have to come through this valley. It's like the center of the world. And this valley is where this meeting is going to happen between the two huge powers. 200 million from the East has to be talking about Red China. And then the huge power from the West has to be Europe, Canada, South America, the States, and everywhere else. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. And then this, of course, is where we get the expression Armageddon from the Valley of Megiddo.
Patrick, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. X Zone Nation, our special guest this hour, the one and only Dr. Patrick Heron. He is the author of Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. His website, www.neph.ie. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe, dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Talkstar Radio Network. Don't go away.
19 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant, check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And welcome back, everyone. Dr. Patrick Heron is our special guest. He is the author of Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order. His website, www.neph.ie. So, Patrick, what would you like to leave the X-Zone Nation with tonight?
Well, what I'd like to leave the X-Zone Nation with is that these fallen angels are going to manifest on the earth again, and that the world is being prepared, conditioned, brainwashed, subliminally and overtly for the appearance of these men, these supernatural beings, in the coming apocalypse. Many of your listeners will probably be here for that. I hope they're not. I don't wish it on any of them, because it's going to be a very, very bad time. Literally hell on earth, and you don't want to be caught in this demonic colosseum. And that's why a lot of the things that are happening in the world today, Rob, are conditioning people for this. I think I mentioned briefly last week that when I walked through Heathrow Airport, they had posters of what you call these things, an alien, Nephilim, a fallen angel, I call it, an oval-headed alien with the word knowledge written across it. That's not all that was on these things, all the way through Heathrow Airport. Then we have an incredible advertisement on the TV in Europe at the moment of fallen angels, female fallen angels, incredibly lifelike, descending and falling to earth like figs falling from a fig tree.
We have it over here. We have it over here as well. They're advertising a spray for Axe, I believe it is.
Yes, Lynx.
Lynx, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if people haven't seen it, they can click on my website. It's on my splash page. Then I found out that they have a woman in the UN called Mazlan Othman, who's the UN diplomat for aliens in the Office for Outer Space Affairs. Then I hear there's a guy called the Pope's astronomer. We didn't know the Pope had an astronomer. Dr. Guy Consolmagno says he will baptize the aliens if they want to when they arrive, because these are benign beings made by the same God that we are. We have British school children at the moment are being trained in UF crash drills.
Wow.
They are actually staging UFOs crashing into schools and then bringing the local bobbies in together with the teachers and the kids and telling them what to do if a UFO crashes in their school. And of course, we have governments all over the world opening up their UFO files, which were top secret up to recently. So all the movies, TV programs and books at the moment that are pervading our daily life and bombarding us 24/7 are magical, mystical, supernatural, aliens, ETs, UFOs, crop circles, abductions, vampires, search for extraterrestrial evidence. All that stuff has all to do with conditioning, subliminally and overtly, the whole of the human race for the reappearance from both beneath the fallen angels who were here before and the rest of Satan and the rest of his fallen angels are going to be kicked out of heaven and are going to descend onto the earth like figs falling from a fig tree. And they may just show up in pyramid-shaped UFOs, because they'll be able to point to the New Jerusalem at the end of the book of Revelation and say, look, it says we're going to show up in a city whose length and breadth and height is the same. And I cover all this in detail in my book, Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order.
My good friend, you and I have to say so long for tonight, Patrick. As always, a great pleasure talking to you. My very best to you. Continued success, and thank you for letting the world know about these prophecies that are happening in these present days. So until the next time you and I meet, take care of yourself, my friend, and be well.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you very much for having me on again.
It's always a great pleasure. Bye-bye now. Dr. Patrick Heron is the author of Return of the Antichrist and the New World Order, www.neph.ie. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue. We're right here from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.